Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, it's the last episode of season 2. We are about to enter year 3 of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. How are we feeling?
Man, where did the time go, B?
I
have
know.
no
It's
idea.
pretty wild. Pretty wild.
I feel like I was in a warp zone, but no, man. Happy to do another episode with you tonight. We have a few weeks and counting until Gator football kicks off. College football kicks off. The excitement! It's just palpable. I mean, there's no way to explain it.
It's provocative, as you like to say.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you're not starting to get excited about the season, you're probably not listening to this podcast. Just saying. All right. So with that, let's get things kicked off. So tonight's episode will be our anticipations and apprehensions, or I should say in order, our apprehensions and anticipations for the 2025 season. So as always, we'll get things started off here with our mission, accuracy, disclaimer, vision, and agenda. Our mission, of course, is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, and recruiting data comes from on3.com. Our vision, of course, is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions, as well as on-the-field execution. All right, so real easy agenda tonight, in theory. Short and sweet. It will be our apprehensions for the season, our anticipations for the season, and we will wrap things up. That's it. Simple as that. Nothing else to it. But obviously, we have quite a few points we're going to get into here. We actually each have 4 in each section that we're going to go through. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you and get us started. What is your first apprehension, your first concern for the 2025 season? Take it away.
All right, B. My first apprehension, and I think a lot of people in Gator Nation, Gator Nation is everywhere. Those listening right now, the biggest apprehension I think we can kick right off the bat is DJ Lagway's health.
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, that is correct. Wait, are you reading my notes? Unfortunately. Okay. Okay. Keep your eyes over there, buddy. So most recently, Lagway to start fall camp, hindered, calf strain, boot. Now, for the record, the boot was probably over precautionary just to make sure everything is okay. So we know that there was a calf strain at some point. Calf strain, contusion, whatever, the calf. Okay. So before that, we looked at the hamstring issue from last season. Thanks, Everbangfield. We looked at what transpired later that fall, going into the spring, right? We looked at there was a LBI, lower body injury, coupled with a shoulder issue. Later, we found out and we read through Billy's words, right? That was a product that lower body injury turned out to be the hernia, right? He needed rest. And that hernia, of course, because of the series of muscles that comes through the front of the body, going up through the abdomen, the obliques, up to the pectoral muscles, it does affect the throwing motion, especially when you look at a deep ball, a long ball. And then the other thing that came out was that, the injuries, they wanted to keep it under wraps, but it's more so the family, right? Some privacy. Get that, no problem. But with that LBI and the shoulder, those were lingering issues apparently from high school. So you've got a lot of those things kind of coupled in. And let's face it, when you see DJ Lagway, when you look at DJ Lagway, as Ben made a comment to me a few weeks ago for SEC Media Days, he just looks like a specimen, okay, at his size, his height, everything in general. And so with that, this guy is extremely, I mean, this is an understatement to say, extremely important to what is happening with the progression of this team. Okay. He is the difference for the Gators, period, bar none. Without him, the issue that we face is we know there's some flaws. We've talked about it before, but we know there's some inefficiencies in the offense. Okay. And we'll get to that later on. But being with or without DJ Lagway is basically what I equate to how Florida started last season compared to where Florida ended last season. And that was a team possessed that turned it around to win five of their final 7 games. Okay. 6-0 in games he starts and finishes. Yes, I say that specifically because for all those thinking out there, well, he's 6-1. Remember, he didn't finish the Georgia game. And when he left that game, we were beating Georgia. And we had a great opportunity to put Georgia away. But it was what it was. Furthermore, Lagway didn't play 100% against LSU and Ole Miss. Okay. Some say he was at 65%, some say 75%, some say 75. Whatever the number, we really don't know. But let's face it.
I don't think he was 100% against FSU, quite frankly.
Okay. And then to finish off the season, you look at FSU, you look at Tulane. Correct. Right? At the end of the day, if we were able to do that, if we were able to rally the troops, rally around him and produce that, okay, we have to have that same type of effort going into this fall to make sure he stays healthy throughout. Okay. If we don't have Lagway, it's Harrison Bailey, right? By way of Tennessee and UNLV and Louisville, and then Aiden Warner, which again, no disrespect to Aiden Warner, looked terrible last year. But again, look at the stage he was put on to perform. I mean, anyone would have fallen. Okay. Aiden does look better, but at the end of the day, and I go back to this, Graham Mertz, I made the comment before, the way we started last year compared to the way we ended last year. We love Graham Mertz and what he did and what he meant for the University of Florida. Okay. But let's face it, DJ makes the difference. You infuse him into a lineup and possibilities happen. Things happen. Winning happens. Thanks, Charlie Sheen. Okay. O-line is key to keeping number 2's jersey clean between Barber, Harris, Slaughter, George, Lovett, those guys up front. That's what it's going to be. Now, some interesting things. Jacob Cope, I'm not sure if you saw the quote from Jacob Copeland last week, former wide receiver.
I did. I thought it was dumb, for the record.
Right. Got to slow him down in the weight room. That's where them boys' injuries come from. Let's be honest. We know that when you train muscle, when muscle grows, fibers tear. Okay. Thank you, Cleveland Clinic. Lifting weights is one of the best way to build, maintain muscle fibers. Okay. For fast twitch muscle fibers, your training is moderate in intensity, right? Until the muscles reach some type of failure or fatigue with a moderate amount of weight. Trust me, Tyler Miles knows what he's doing. Okay, some accidents are freakish, or some injuries are freakish. Sometimes there's fatigue out of the body, and all we can hope is that DJ's body has had a significant amount of time to rest, and Tyler's doing whatever he needs to do to take the precautions to get his body in shape to where he can enter that game 1 at 100%. But at the end of the day, my biggest apprehension has to be Lagway's overall health and the impact on this team.
Yeah, no question. So I think you said it really well. I think you talked some about the backups and what happens if he does go down. At the end of the day, if he goes down and misses any kind of significant time, especially depending on when that is during the season, we're in a lot of trouble. We're not going to recover from, period. There's no way around it with this schedule, with this absolute gauntlet that we're playing pretty much throughout the season, especially in the first half of the season, but really overall, we will not survive that. My concern, though, has stemmed a little beyond that, and that is in terms of the amount of time that he has missed in the offseason because of some of these injuries and what that means for chemistry with his receivers. I was so glad to see him back out there throwing on Saturday, today, and seemingly moving forward, at least hopefully moving forward, because I think that is so, so critical to his timing and his chemistry that he has to build with guys that, let's be honest, he didn't throw to that much last year. He didn't throw to Jermichael Sturdivant at all. He didn't throw to Dallas Wilson at all. He didn't throw to Nashawn Montgomery at all. He didn't throw to Vernell Brown at all. They weren't here. He couldn't have. So those four guys who all could see the field this year, a couple of will see the field probably a lot this year, he didn't throw to at all. Now, Aiden Mizell, he's thrown to probably a fair amount. So that one I'm not as worried about. But Trey Wilson went down after week 4 last year. So he didn't throw to him that much either because he wasn't there to be thrown to. He was injured. He was hurt. So there's another one he needs to build chemistry with. This stuff matters. I don't care how good a quarterback you are. I don't care how good a receiver you are. You have to build chemistry. You have to understand how guys run routes. You have to understand their footwork, their timing, their route running style in order to be able to get those timing type throws, back shoulder fades, out routes, everything else. They have to be on point, on time, because you need to throw that ball either as they're making their break or in some cases before they're making their break in that route. And if you don't know and understand that timing to a T, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be dead on, and it leaves opportunities for the defense to make a play. Does this matter week 1? Absolutely not. Does this matter week 2? Absolutely not, really. Does this matter week 3? You bet your ass it does. It definitely matters week 3. So when we really break it down, you have fall camp, which we already missed a week of, but now he's back, which is really, really important. You have the first week of practice and the second week of practice. And then it's game on. So super, super, super important that we make sure that everything is dialed in and rolling for the timing, the accuracy, and mostly the chemistry with these guys to understand what each of them is doing and how Lagway is able to make sure that he knows that and has some kind of, in sync going on with these guys moving forward. So that to me is as important as his health moving forward. Obviously, his health is super important. I'm not to a point where I'm like super concerned, holding my breath every play about his health. Am I a little more worried about it than I was last year? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But I'm not losing my mind yet by any stretch of the imagination. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I definitely think that it's something we have to monitor. We have to keep an eye on. But my biggest thing is he's got to get time to do this stuff, and hopefully he'll have that now. So with that, we will move on to our next point, which is going to be the defensive scheme. This is my biggest concern going into next season. We obviously have multiple concerns, but my biggest apprehension heading into next year is the defensive scheme. So I have some stuff I want to break down. We're going to get pretty analytical on this. Got a bunch of stats I want to throw at you. And I want to take a look at the last 2 SEC games of the season. So first of all, the defensive scheme last year, in my opinion, was very much a bend, don't break type of system, even when we were playing well. I think that's Ron Roberts' kind of MO. And I think that can be okay, but you have to be very careful when you're playing that type of a scheme. Because when you're bend, don't break, you need some breaks, ironically, to go your way. So I'm going to throw some stats out here. Last 2 SEC games of the season. LSU, we gave up 392 total yards. We averaged 376.9 per game on the season, so a little more than normal, but basically average. However, we gave up a 54.2% third down conversion versus our 39.7% average. So way over average. And if you watch that game, you'll remember it was annoying how often they converted third down. We only gave up 2.9 yards per carry. This was good. 3.79 was the average on the season. And we had 1 turnover that we forced, 7 sacks, and 11 tackles for loss in that win. So what do we see there? Little more yardage than average, but basically on point. Way higher third down conversion, though. And a yards per carry, a little below the average, but not anything crazy. So overall, the stats were not anything way out of the norm, but definitely something where we had some concern on third down that could have been a problem for them sustaining drives. However, because of our turnover and our sacks and our tackles for a loss, we were able to stifle a lot of that in that bend don't break philosophy. Okay, next game, Ole Miss. 464 total yards allowed. I'll remind you, 376.9 was the average. However, we did better on third down, only allowing 21.4% third down conversion. But as a caveat, we did allow 50% on 2 of 4 fourth down conversions. So really, it was kind of more like 28, 29% if you really look at the overall, if you include fourth down, which I know isn't third down, but at the end of the day, we let them sustain drives closer to 30% of the time. Again, the average was 39.7, so still below the average, but 464 total yards with, over 100 yards basically over, or about 100 yards over our average, with just somewhat below the drive conversion average being on third down stops at 30 versus 39.7 if you factor in fourth down, and a 4.0 yards per carry average versus our 3.79, which was about standard. That's a game where, we didn't really do anything that really stood out as being, okay, there's something in the metrics here that says, we won this game. Until you look at 3 turnovers, not counting 2 fourth down stops, so effectively 5 turnovers, 4 sacks, and 9 tackles for loss. That's why we won that football game. Period. End of story. 3 turnovers, again, really effectively 5 turnovers, 4 sacks, and 9 tackles for loss. Now, in case you're not convinced yet, let me give you a comparison. Let's go back to game 3 of the season against Florida West. For those that don't know or listen to this pod, that's Texas A&M. We gave up 488 yards of total offense. That's pretty similar to 464, right? I'd say very similar. About the same. Again, our average was 376.9, so about 100 more, roughly, give or take. We gave up 38.5% on third down. I said we gave up about 30 if you count fourth down versus Ole Miss. So it's not that dissimilar. Slightly different, but close. 5.6 yards per carry. We did give up more, but that factors in Marcel Reed's running, who absolutely torched us. If I take Marcel Reed out, I would argue it's probably going to be closer to that 4 yard per carry mark. I didn't do that, but it's not going to be that much different because Le'Veon Moss did not trounce us in that game. It was absolutely Marcel Reed. Here's your winning stat, because if you remember, or I should say losing stat, because if you remember, we got absolutely trounced in that game, 33-20, though the 20 was really a garbage touchdown. It should have been 33-13. 0 turnovers, 0 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. So, my point is a bend, don't break defense is a problem if you bend, don't break, and don't force turnovers, don't get sacks, and don't get significant tackles for loss. You don't win football games, is what happens in that scenario. So my apprehension here is that this defense better not rely on turnovers, sacks, and tackles for loss, because they're not things that you can always predict are going to happen. You better have better, more solid, more consistent down-to-down defensive play, which I think we can have for the record, but it better be improved over what it was last year in the down-to-down kind of standard down play, and not rely completely on these high-impact, high-value plays of turnovers, sacks, and tackles for loss to stall drives. Because if we're relying on that for the whole season, I guarantee you it's going to cost us multiple games. Take it away.
Yes, you got some good points in there, B. It's interesting to see the numbers, how similar they were from the Ole Miss or the LSU game going back to the Mississippi or the Florida West game. Very, very interesting, because it's funny, because when you look at some of the games that we've had over the past years, you look at, if you can take away probably 3 or 4 explosive plays, you can say that we're right there. You know, if you add a sack, if you get a stop on third down, 3rd and 27, whatever the hell it was, years ago, right?
Fourth and 27, I think.
was a 4th and 20. Either way,
It
you
was a
take away some
4th
of those
down
bigger
against Missouri,
plays.
is what you're referring to. Yeah, that was brutal. I don't know
Missouri,
if it was
thank you.
27, but it was a lot. It was a lot.
It shouldn't have happened to begin with. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's the thing. You take away some of those things, and but to your point, the high impact play, you can't always go for the home run, right? You got to have some singles, you got to have some doubles here and there. You just can't focus on those home runs. And so hopefully, when you look at the way that this defense is lines up this year and the pieces that we have in place, especially on the D line, especially returning at edge. My hope is that we don't have to necessarily rely on those home run type plays. We can play more contained. We can play more controlled, and just wreaks some good old fashioned havoc.
Yeah. And what's funny is I would refer. I think the stat. It's funny you say havoc, because I would refer to and I think the industry would refer to the plays that we were forcing as havoc plays, right? And actually, what I think we need to do is not rely on those havoc plays to get us the results that we need. I think that's what we were doing down the stretch there, and maybe not relying isn't the right word, but I think the fact that we were having so many of them is what was getting us the results we were getting. And it was almost a little miragey, is what I would say about the defense. Not to say that they weren't playing well, they were, but I think the results maybe were a little better than how we were actually playing, especially Ole Miss. I would say that's a big one, because again, you effectively forced 5 turnovers in that game.
Well, and let's face it, Jackson Dart
and again, won by a touchdown. Won by 1 touchdown, forcing effectively 5 turnovers. Let that sink in.
Well, right, and let's be honest, Jackson Dart should not have thrown those 2 INTs late. He should have. But that was what it was, and
I mean, I don't know about shouldn't have, but
for as good as he was, should have released the ball. But anyways, that is it. We'll go ahead and put that into it. But yeah, defensive scheme, don't bend, don't break. Great points there. Next, apprehension, special teams. Why is that an apprehension? All right. So new punter.
I don't know. 10 men on the field. I don't
know. Right. So Joe Houston. Houston, do we have a problem? Joe Houston is excited for this year's crew. So let's start it off by, believe it or not, our first transfer portal pickup for the year, which was Tommy Doman coming out of Michigan. So he's going to be our punter this year. He was rated a 3-star. Doman averaged 42.61 yards a punt in 2024. Good for number 43 in the nation. Just to give you perspective, Jeremy Crawshaw, who we've lost to eligibility in the draft, adios, mate, averaged 45.75 yards a punt, 45.75 in 2024. Good for number 5 in the nation. So we're giving up 3 yards and change a punt. Okay, fine. The Gators were number.
I mean, in theory, there is context to that number, so that's important to.
Sure. Gators number 11 in the nation last year with net punting of 42.37. So crucial number there as well. Trey Smack, senior out of Maryland, handling kickoffs, field goals, extra points. Trey Smack should have a very solid campaign. He's been waiting on a campaign like this last year, recovered from a couple of mistakes he had the previous year, and was very, very solid for us.
Yeah, you tell me how he didn't get voted first team All SEC, and I'll give you a cookie. That is absolutely nuts to me after dude makes multiple 50-plus yarders last season. I'm not aware of anybody else in the SEC that's returning that does that, and yet he gets second team All SEC kicker. Okay, based on what? I think that's ludicrous. Best kicker in the SEC, hands down, not questionable, period. Moving along.
I'm telling you, B, a lot of Gators got left off of certain lists. Well, just saying. In 2024, the Gators ranked 18th in the nation with 13.36 average yards on a punt return. Yeah. More astounding of that is, how many touchdowns, B? 0.
One of these days, one of these years, one of these decades, we'll get another one.
We will get another one. We will. So Joe Houston mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, 12 players being in the mix. to quote Joe, obviously they're all very talented. They're extremely fast. They're quick. They have good ball skills. They can track the ball. Really, it's going to come down to the decision-making piece of where Shim did an outstanding job of when to return, when to throw a catch, the intricacies, right, of being a returner, the communication piece of it, the make you miss ability. And that's something that Shim, although was not the biggest or the fastest, he did so well. Okay. And obviously, Shim DK is off to the NFL. So, Shim, we appreciate everything you did for your 2 years here as a Gator. So
1 year.
Oh, I apologize. 1 year. I'm talking 2. I wish we had 2.
Yeah, yes. I should have. I wish it had been 2. The guy was great.
could you imagine if he had come here when Mertz came here? Like, unreal,
man.
right?
That would have been incredible.
That would have been. So when we look at some of those guys in play, right? I just want to read off some numbers to you. Vernell Brown III, true freshman, right? But he's one of the 12 in the mix. Placed second in the 100-meter dash at the 2024 Windermere National Invitational Champions, recording an 11.07. Okay,
that's low on this team.
It is. Get this. Flowers bested that time, FHSA Track and Field Championships in May 9, just a couple months ago. Okay, 10.8. And those two slot matched by Tank, who ran a 10.300 meter at the 2023 95th Clyde Littlefield Texas Relays.
You kind of glossed over that. A 10.3.
Yeah,
that's
10.3.
Borderline Olympic speed in the 100 meter. I mean, that is flying.
That is correct. Gloss over or not, 10.3 speaks for itself. When you look at football, because obviously there's a big difference between football speed and track speed. Big difference.
Unless you're Jeff Demps, yes, there is.
Oh boy, never mind. Fair enough. So the main thing here to figure out is, of those 12 guys in the mix, are we going to have some excitement in the return game again? Is there going to be, and again, speed is one element of it. The shiftiness is the other element of it. But again, the abilities, because B, I think you referenced a play a couple seasons ago with one Trey Wilson, as much as we love him, fielding a ball, and that being a big difference regarding field positioning.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Massive.
Decision making and whether or not to make the return or make a fair catch is key. And I think that's what the decision making is going to come down to here. I think ability, speed, all that stuff factors in a little bit, but we have a lot of guys with that on this team. So I think, to Joe Houston's point, it's going to come down to who's the one who makes the best decision the most number of times, right? And I think they'll get that right. They clearly got it right with Chim last year. That was the right guy to be returning punts. He looked phenomenal out there. His ability to not only make the right decision, but pick the right lane, pick the right alley to return the punts. I mean, man, they got it right with him. He was absolutely killing it on returns last year. So I trust this special teams team that we have. As crazy it is for me to say that with the amount of times we've lined up the wrong number of people on special teams. Though in fairness, we did not do that very often last year. I think it happened twice. Shouldn't happen at all, but I think it happened twice. So hopefully it's 0 this year. And ultimately, I think overall the unit and the effectiveness and everything else was a lot better this year than it was obviously the year prior, which isn't saying a whole lot, but hopefully it continues to improve as Mr. Houston continues to have his finger on the pulse and influence on things.
Absolutely. So as long as we can flip the field this year and play really good positional football on special teams, I anticipate special teams having a not necessarily make or break, but a very big part to play in the success, especially when you look at field position. Because let's face it, the Gators have not historically in the past, let me just say this, in the Napier era, has not been good on field position. So let's see if we can impact some of those numbers this year.
Yeah, I think that has more to do, in fairness, I think it has more to do with the offense than it does with special teams. Because let's get real, Crawshaw's getting rave reviews in Denver. I mean, they are singing his praises out there. So I don't think that's at the fault of special teams, especially, and when you talk field position, it's more going to be your punter than it is your kicker. So I think that's more going to be, and your returners, I guess. And obviously, Chim was very good. We averaged a very high number in punt returns. kick returns are basically nothing burgers now because most of them don't happen. And we had a good kick return average when we did return them last year. So it's not the return game. It's not the punt game, or it hasn't been. It's been the offense putting us in that hole. So ultimately, when I look at it, I don't put that blame on special teams historically. Now, going forward this year, I think that is going to matter to your point, and I think it's a valid concern because there have been other concerns with special teams that have mattered, but I don't think it's a huge concern in terms of the special teams unit for field position, but I do think it is something where they can aid us, and it'll be a good thing to watch moving forward next year. Definitely a question mark, especially with some of the transfers and differences in the return game, in the punting game. Definitely some things to keep an eye on. Will Ball still return kicks? I don't know. I don't think he should, for the record. I don't want my starting running back returning kicks. I want somebody else doing that, just because of potential for injury. So, yeah, I would like to see somebody else doing that. And we have plenty of talent that can do it, so let's get them doing it.
We do. And oddly enough, he is one of the 12 names, so I'll leave that as it is.
Yeah, and I don't know why the hell you'd be returning punts, for the record. But anyway, moving right along.
Yep.
Next, apprehension. We had a whole pod on this, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but player personnel decisions to start the season. So if you want to hear more detail on this point, and I will give some of the examples, actually 3 of the 4, and then one more, that we had in that pod, and I won't go into the same detail. But player personnel decisions to start the season. Do we have the right guys in the right places? So my examples from last year are DJ Douglas over Bryce Thornton. This is one we did not discuss, at least at length, in our pod that we had previously in the year. This was a terrible call, an absolutely terrible call. There was no reason to have DJ Douglas starting, or excuse me, he wasn't starting. He was behind Asa Turner, but as soon as Asa went down in game 1, DJ was the starter over Bryce Thornton. Bryce had some injury concerns early in the season, but game 1 he was available, and he was listed as an or with DJ Douglas. No, wrong. We absolutely saw evidence clearly later in the season that Bryce was by far the better player at the position, probably overall. Terrible decision, drastic miss, complete misevaluation, wrong across the board. Next one, Cam Waits over Crimshaw Dixon at right tackle, or left tackle, excuse me. No, right tackle. I was right the first time, sorry. Horrific decision. He was a turnstile at right tackle against Miami. Lasted literally 1 game and then was pulled from the starting lineup for Crenshaw Dixon. That's all you need to know. Never should have been there as a starter. Cam can play guard. Cam can back up tackle. He should not be the starter in any circumstance or situation. He's a great story. He's a good guy. He's not the starter at right tackle for the Florida Gators. And you'll notice, even though he's a senior this year, he still isn't the starter. Funny how that works. So I think they got that figured out, but nonetheless, these are decisions that matter. They can't get these things wrong. Cam Jackson over Elijah Badger. Now, technically, they were listed as an or on the starting sheet, but Cam Jackson started that game against Miami. I know he got hurt game 1, but we saw what Khalil Jackson was capable of in the 2023 season with Graham Mertz. And he's a solid, dependable, good receiver. And what was Elijah Badger last year? An NFL draft pick, which Khalil Jackson is not. Love the kid to death. He's not. That's all I need to say. You start the NFL draft picks over the ones that aren't. Period. Last example, Derek Wingo over Jaden Robinson. Wingo was an or starter with Pup Howard. No. I'm sorry, but absolutely not. Love Wingo to death. Phenomenal human being. Great guy. Class act, doing really cool stuff with NIL now. Love this kid. Just great guy. Not the right decision. Period. Should have been Pup or Robinson, not Pup or Wingo. Period. The film bears it out. If you don't believe me, go back and watch it. It's very simple. I'm not going to get into details about it. Again, you want to hear more, go back and listen to the previous pod. We talked about this more, but ultimately, these are the concerns that I have. I have multiple different positions groups on offense, on defense, where we made significant mistakes. The film bears out the right decisions as the season goes on. We watch it, we see it, we see other guys come into different positions because of the position not performing, injury, whatever the case might be. We won't know game one if they made the wrong decision because we won't have the film on these guys. But as the season progresses, we're going to figure it out and we're going to know if they messed up. And they can't mess up. They've got to get this stuff right in camp. They've got to figure it out during this camp process, and they've got to make at least 90% of the right decisions. They're human. They have the ability to miss. Some guys are better practice players than game players. I understand that there could be the possibility that they miss here or there, but they cannot miss like they've missed historically with this coaching staff. They have missed way too much in the past with these decisions. They have got to get better, especially when we look at last season. It has got to be better than it was to start last season. Way too many misses, especially for starters. It's got to get better. It's got to improve. And frankly, I'm a bit concerned about it, especially when it comes to the wide receiver room. I think the wide receiver room could be a huge opportunity to make misses here, and I don't want to see it happen. I really don't. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what goes on, but I have concerns, and the film will bear it out as the season goes along. I guarantee it. We'll have opportunities to see these guys, and the film will tell us what we need to know. But they got to get it right, or we are going to be in a world of hurt that we don't need to be in. It will be self-inflicted harm, and there's no worse kind.
There is no worse kind. Well said. Yeah, it's funny when you look at the amount of talent that we've had and some of the gaps that we've had and some of the players that have taken the field that you kind of scratch your head and go, why is he on the field? I mean, was he that bad in practice to the point where the other player taking the field was that good in practice and beat him out? Like, it makes no sense sometimes. But either way, you're not wrong as far as that player personnel decision being an absolute apprehension as we go into this season with arguably the best roster we've had on paper. Now, going from
the that's a great point. Sorry, I'll just take 1 minute. This isn't 2022 where you had to play Trey Dean because you had Trey Dean and you didn't have anybody else to play nickel.
Sure.
You have options. You have choices. You have other guys you can play at the position that are not scrubs. Make the right choice. That's it.
You have one job. Make the right choice. There you go. All right. To that end, the next apprehension that we have, the schedule.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I
got some thoughts here, but I'll let you go, obviously.
Yeah. The schedule. I think let's call it the schedule. I mean, how else can you break it down? In the Power Four, the hardest in the nation, and people say, "Oh, well, you got LIU. It's a cupcake." Oh, so okay, sure, I'll give you that. South Florida, sure, okay, we'll see what Alex Golish could do in that crew. Fine, but then we have the first test on September 13th at LSU. And that's going to be a night game. That's going to be in Death Valley. That stadium has a capacity somewhere around 102,321 people. Mind you, it's called Death Valley for a reason. Also, LSU is returning Garrett Nussmeier, preseason rank number 9 in the nation. It's one thing to play else.
Depending where you look, I've seen him number 2.
Yeah, sure. Okay, fair. ESPN's preseason ranking, that's where I was able to pull that from.
All right.
My apologies, should have cited that for you. But,
thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, okay, very good. But here's the thing. It's LSU, it's Death Valley, and Brian Kelly, mildly hot seat, sort of hot seat. Listen,
weird.
going
I
back,
call him weird hot seat.
weird hot seat, fair. He's been compared to the greats, right? So look at was it Les Miles won a natty after 3 seasons, Nick Saban after 4 seasons, even though they don't drop after 4 seasons. Guess what? It's Brian Kelly's 4th season. And very similar to what Ole Miss did last year, LSU kind of mortgaged the farm to build this team.
Yeah, it did.
They spent some money. How much did they spend?
A little bit.
I can't count that high, but they spent some money, right? So let's see what happens with that. But either way, Death Valley at night, 102,000 jambalaya crazed people. Yeah, not good. Not good. You have an actual Bengal tiger as a mascot. They're sitting waiting for you as you're walking out. Yeah, not good. Okay, September 20th, Miami, Hard Rock, 65,326. Miami, preseason rank, go again. ESPN poll, coaches poll, number 10. Okay. Carson Beck transfers from Georgia. Still Miami. Mario Cristobal wants to impose his will on Billy Napier, former co-assistant coaches over at Alabama. Get it. Miami doesn't really show up. The fans show up that much at Hard Rock. It's not like they have a sellout crowd, right? Hopefully we're going to see more orange and blue there than orange and green, whatever that is. But either way, it's still Miami. It's at Hard Rock. Tough. We're going to need, especially between LSU and Miami, we're going to need some rest. So we've got to bye. No problem. Coming out of that bye, we got Texas coming to the Swamp. The most talented Manning. I'll just call him that. Coaches poll preseason ranked number 1.
Whoa. You're calling Arch the most talented Manning?
I'm not calling him that. I'm not. No, whoa. I'm not calling him that. I'm just telling you, word on the street. Most physically fit Manning, most talented Manning. Wow. Word on the street, B. Word on the street.
Okay. Okay, that's a strong statement, but all right.
But that's the thing, right? You know, where did Quinn Ewers go? No disrespect to him in the draft.
7th round after Graham Mertz.
Okay. Again, why was Sark sitting the most physically fit and supposedly talented man? I don't know. But either way, it's Texas.
Keep pumping them Spurrier vibes, baby. I love it.
There you go. It's Texas. It's Sark. He's going to have a plan here in the Swamp. Big game. Tight game. Next game, October 11th. Florida West. At Florida West.
Yep.
Stadium capacity at Kyle Field, 102,733. That's a lot of 12 men. 12th man, what do you call it? Preseason number 21. That energy, that environment, definite home field. You want to talk about home field advantage? That is home field advantage for them. They go wild, waving the towels. They got all the recruits. It's insane.
So for those playing at home, that's ranked team on the road, ranked team on the road, ranked team at home, and currently number 1 ranked team at home, and then ranked team on the road. Just for those playing at home.
4 ranked out of the 6, exactly. Mississippi State, not ranked. Mississippi State's coming to Florida. They're coming to the Swamp. So thank goodness we don't have to put up with 61,413 cowbells. That's great. Well, we'll only have about, 2,000 cowbells, whatever the case might be. But that'll be fine. After that, bye. We need a bye. We need to rest up, get healthy for whatever reason, because November 1st, Georgia, Everbank Field. Everbank Field sits 67,838, but it's still Georgia. It's Everbank. By the way, Georgia preseason rank number 4.
Well, and this is coach's poll rank for the record. Yep. We don't have AP poll yet.
Correct. But at the end of the day, it's still Georgia. It's Florida, Georgia. It's Everbank Field. Georgia will be playing with 13 on the field, including the field, because, it's 12 plus the field is 13. So that is what it is there. Next game, November 8th, Kentucky at Kroger Field, a capacity of 61,000. Mark Stoops, allegedly, they're not happy with Mark there in the Bluegrass State. Kentucky's kind of slipped. Yes, we know it's a basketball school. We don't have high expectations for Kentucky football, but a lot of people still do in Kentucky. So that is what it is. They're not going to fill the stadium. It's not going to be a packed game. It's not going to be very noisy. We should have the ability to navigate through that team in a decent fashion. November 15th, at Ole Miss. I worry about this one. It's at Ole Miss. Okay. A capacity of 64,038. Okay. About 150, 180 bucks a ticket to Vaughn Hemingway. But guess what? Lane Kiffin's saltiness for last year's loss, priceless.
Yep.
Priceless. Okay. By the way,
nice MasterCard reference there. I like it.
You're welcome. MasterCard, we love a sponsorship. Thanks. Preseason number 15, another ranked school. November 22nd against Tennessee. I get it. Tennessee, they don't have Maliaba. He was leaving. They have a new quarterback, a new system. Heupel's got a leash. No problem. It's still Heupel. He still has weapons. And by the way, preseason ranked number 18. And then November 29th, Florida State. Florida State comes to the Swamp for a beatdown. Folks, when you look at that season and you look at the away games and you look at the amount of teams that are ranked in the preseason right now,
yep,
I don't know what else I need to say regarding, oh, yeah, you guys have LIU. It's a cupcake. Your schedule's not hard. You start with LIU in South Florida. No big deal. Okay, sure. But that's the toughest part of it compared to last year. The game's being flipped, B.
It really is. So obviously we did our schedule breakdown pod last episode. Go back, listen to the details of every opponent if you'd like to. I'm not trying to promote former pods, but I just don't want to get into super deep details right now. That's the only reason I'm stating that. So here's what I'll say high level. I've read some stuff recently. I've seen some stuff recently that talks about Napier and schedule and everything else and kind of compares him to past coaches and why is Napier still here, or should he still be here, or will he still be here depending on how this season goes, and if it's not, as good as it should be, or whatever it should be means, or whatever else. I think anybody that's listened to me, certainly, or Randy talk on this pod for any kind of significant amount of time, especially during the season, knows that we are not Napier apologists in any way. We hold him accountable. We point out things that we feel are absolutely flaws and need improvement and need addressing and don't get addressed, and our frustrations by any stretch of the imagination for us with this team and with this coaching staff and everything else. We also point out things we think are positive. We try to look at both sides. We try not to be jaded on one side of the aisle or the other. That's very much something that we try to do, is look at every aspect, every angle. Having said all of that, this schedule is really hard, just like last year's schedule was really hard. I made the argument last pod when we talked about this that this schedule might even be harder than last year's schedule, at least in some aspects. I think certainly the conference games are. Having said all of that, I don't think that it is reasonable to hold Billy Napier to any previous standard of past Florida coaches. Because when you go back, as we made the point of in previous pod, once again, I'll stop saying it, I promise. No previous Florida coach has been exposed to anything that resembles these last 2 years of scheduling, period. It's not close, not in the ballpark, not on the same planet as what these last 2 years have been from a scheduling perspective. Again, if you look back debatably, last year, this year, pick your year, I don't care. It's one of the toughest college football schedules in the history of college football. Forget Florida, college football. It's one of the hardest schedules ever. That's a hard thing for any coach to go up against. I don't care who you are. This is not me making excuses for Billy. This is the most talented roster Florida has seen in a long time. Should we be better than last year? Yes, absolutely. Should Lagway be able to help us get to that point? Yes, absolutely, assuming he stays healthy. However, we have got to temper the expectations at least to some point. Going 11-1 against a schedule like this is almost unfathomable for any team in the country. I don't care who you are in any year ever. 2010 Alabama would struggle to go to 11-1 against this schedule. I'll say that easily. I think they maybe could do it, but it would be hard. That was one of the best teams we've ever seen. 2005 USC would struggle mightily to go 11-1 against this schedule. One of the best teams we've ever seen. Think about that. Have perspective. Have concept of how hard this is. Do I think we should improve over last year? Yes, I do. Do I think we should go 11-1 or even 10-2? No, I do not. No, I do not. This is really, really hard, no matter who you are. Does that mean that it's okay if Napier goes 6-6 against this? No. No, it doesn't. Especially with this amount of talent. But you cannot discredit and just gloss over, oh, yeah, the schedule's hard, but he should do better. No, this schedule's insane. It's not just hard, it's insane. So you have to factor that in. It can't just get glossed over. It has to be factored in to the conversation that you have about this team. I heard something earlier today I thought was really good. It said, and I quote, if Florida goes 10-2 against this schedule, they're the best team in the country.
Oh,
and I completely agree with that statement. If we can go 10-2 against the schedule, which I don't think we will, for the record, I don't see that at all. But if we could do that, we're the best team in the country, hands down. And I totally agree with that statement, because show me another team in the country this year, almost any year, but definitely this year, that can go 10-2 against this gauntlet, and that's the best team in the country, period. And it's not up for discussion. I'll leave it there. Moving on, next apprehension, because we got to get this sucker rolling. Safety play. So this is something that'll come up next week in our season preview when we do positional review. But safety play is a definite question mark, and we have concerns here. Do we see improvement under Vinny Cincinnati, or do we see regression? Because last year, we saw some regression at the safety position, specifically in one Mr. Jordan Castell, at least to start the season. We saw some real regression. We saw some seriously bad play on film from Jordan Castell. I don't know what he was doing out there. We saw some stuff his freshman year where, yes, he made some mistakes, but overall there were bright spots. We saw signs of, hey, this could be a pretty good player. We saw some pretty good things. And then starting off 2024, I don't know what he was doing. In coverage, in run stopping, I don't know what Jordan was doing. He looked confused. He looked like he didn't know what the play call was. He looked like he didn't know who he was supposed to cover. He looked lost. Now, as the season went on, it got better. Castell and Thornton and Bridges, once Bridges got in the game at safety, because he didn't start the year in the game at safety, but that's a whole nother personnel discussion, looked better as the season went on, for sure. But we are in a position with talent here in this room, whether it's the starters or the backups, where we have a decently solid room. I don't feel in any way like our talent is lacking in this room, as I don't feel talent is lacking in many rooms positionally on the roster, as we made mention of. But it's still a huge question mark right now as to how this room is going to play. So what does the new position coach for the safeties coming in Mr. Cincinnati, do for this room? Do we see improvement? Do we see the ability to do better against the run, against the pass? play within the scheme of the defense, know their assignment, know what the heck they're supposed to do, or do they still continue to look lost on an island to start the season? I hope that's not the case. Again, having two softer games hopefully helps with that. But if they are not clear and not sure, they will get exposed come week 3, let me assure you, because Nussmeier will expose them without question. Without question. So, be very interesting to see how that goes, but it is definitely a question mark for me, and it is something I have concern with, at least right now. It is one of those where I have hope, but I also have a big question mark. So, that's where I'm at with safety. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Good size question mark. I like it. I understand why. I see that when you look at scheme and you look at personnel. However, my hope, even though still in apprehension, my hope is that Sunseri, being a product of the Dark Sith Lord, Nick Saban, playing
Indeed.
for him, playing underneath him, coaching alongside him, and although I would hope some of that Dark Sith Lord mojo on defense would rub off. My hope.
We can hope.
Yeah. And especially when you look at playing in the SEC, defending in the SEC, at that position, it hopefully he's able to come in and make a huge impact in that safety room, because I think that's probably one of our biggest question marks when you look at a position group on this team.
For sure.
Yeah, to that end, next apprehension, play design. Play design. How do we not beat this dead horse? Good Lord, I tell you. All right, so as we know, Russ Callaway promoted to offensive coordinator. INO, in name only, maybe. We'll see. Will we see out of it? Callaway has a really unique air raid background. Will we see any of it? TBD. TBD. No, we won't. Sorry, who said that? Will we see any variations and tweaks to the play design? We hope so. Because if it's one thing we can say that Billy Napier has failed to do, is produce some excitement on offense. Okay, period. Another bit of influence, Stephen Spurrier Jr. Okay, say more, say less. Okay. We have a unique first world problem at running back. Although, sorry to hear, Trayon Webb's going to undergo hamstring surgery. We saw that today. He's going to be limited. He might be returned later on the season, but extremely limited hamstring surgery. It is what it is. The division of carries when it comes to the running back. Okay. If you remember last year, I'll go back to the Mertz and Lagway, bring them in. Okay, you're going to go in 2 sets. Okay, you're going to go in 2 sets. You're going to go in 2 sets. You're going to go in 2 sets, and then rotate back and forth, right? Very regimented with regards to the scheme. Here's the thing, though. If you've got a player going off, if you have a wide receiver going off, if you have a running back going off, do we have the ability to pivot and be flexible and let that player cook? Do we?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. And that's an apprehension, right? Napier's lack of ability, as we would say, 20 plus years ago, dating ourselves, the lack of the ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Shout out to Coach Carchins for that. Okay?
Yep.
Look at what the resources we have at University of Florida. The head ball coach and head ball coach junior. Fun and gun.
Head ball coach junior. I like it.
Yeah, right. And here's the thing about Callaway, right? I did mention Callaway and air raid. Here's the thing. Back in the days, he started his coaching career at Alabama, defensive analyst, right? But after that, Murray State, wide receivers coach, recruiting coordinator. Samford, wide receivers coach, passing game coordinator, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. Okay. Then at Samford, he ended as offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Okay. If you remember, Samford gave Florida State a run for their money years ago. Okay. It was because of him. Also, senior offensive analyst, okay, at LSU. in 20. Okay. Joe Burrow was his quarterback. Steve Ensminger, okay? OC, Scott Linehan, pass game coordinator. Great, great offense of that year. Okay. Callaway has some stuff that's rubbed off on him. Callaway has some abilities. Will we see some of those flashes in this Napier regimented type offense? That is a massive apprehension, B. I'll leave it at there.
Massive question mark for sure. Yeah, I sure hope so. This is something we could spend a lot of time talking about. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. We've spent so much time talking about it over the years. This is something where we've got to see some kind of development, whether it's RPO, whether it's somehow some other personnel packages besides 11 or 12 or occasionally 13. I'd really love to see something that capitalizes on the talent on this team and doesn't waste the opportunity that we have. Obviously, hopefully we do see some of that. We don't know that we will. We hope that we will. Hope for the best. I'm not going to say plan for the worst because I think we have a better option than that this year. So I'm just going to say hope for the best, and we'll leave it at that for now. We'll leave it at hope for the best. That's going to be the slogan for this season so far, and we'll stop right there. So
okay, yeah, leave it there.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. All right, last apprehension I have. This is something that has been talked about a lot if you've read anything in the offseason here, especially recently, and that's the depth of the interior defensive line. So we're not talking about edge rushers here because we're pretty deep there. But the interior defensive line, there's been a lot of noise made about the lack of depth that we might have this season. It's funny because last year we were super deep interior defensive line, but this year we're not. I think the losses of Slackman to graduation and Cam Jackson really make a difference in this. And that's understandable. But I do think it's worth talking about this position. And I do think it is viable to say that it is an apprehension. I will say I'm not as concerned about it as I think maybe the media is, certainly the national media is. I think your starters here are likely Banks and Lyon, that being Caleb Banks and Jamari Lyons, with Micah Burrow and Brian Taylor right behind. And it could be some variation of that. I don't know. But ultimately, I think that's probably what you're looking at. Your transfer out of Baylor, Bet and Tavares Brown are also going to be in the rotation, with the possibility of also seeing Mbachu and McLeod as freshmen coming in to see the field at certain times. Remember, Burrow saw the field last year, right? Micah came into games last year, especially as we got later in the season. So there's no reason to believe that the other freshmen, especially with their size that they have, couldn't see some snaps as well. So again, I don't know that depth is as much of a concern. I think more of the concern here goes back to some of the stuff that we talked about in previous years, and that is that the talent that we have, maybe not the talent, but the experience level here is a bit limited. Jamari missed last season completely with the broken ankle. Burrow's only a sophomore. Mbachu's a freshman. McLeod's a freshman. Brian Taylor saw the field a little last year, but not a ton. Tavares didn't see the field much at all. He did a little bit, but obviously you lost, a couple transfers here. You obviously lost a couple guys to the draft this year, or just to graduation. Not both to the draft. Cam Jackson obviously was the draft, but at the end of the day, I do think there are depth concerns here, but I don't think it's because we don't have enough players. I think it's just because when you look at talent and experience combination, there's not a lot of that going on. You have Caleb Banks, of course, who's excellent. You have Jamari Lyons, who has the potential to be quite good for sure. But how does he bounce back from that ankle? And you have Micah Burrow, who showed some stuff on film last year that looked pretty good, but it was limited. And then from there, you got a bunch of question marks. And not to say that those guys can't be anything, but we don't know what Brendan Brett can do. We don't know if Taylor is going to be as capable there as he was necessarily maybe on the edge side of things. We don't know if Tavares Brown is really what it's just a lot of questions. So I'm not necessarily as concerned as maybe some of the media or the fan base is about this, but I think it is worthy of mentioning in the apprehension section of this thing because there is a concern in terms of depth when it comes to the experience, the amount of time we have here. And this is a really important position. These guys aren't flashy. They're not going to make a ton of tackles. They're certainly not going to make a ton of sacks, but they really matter. They have to pick up those double teams. They have to stuff those holes in the running game. This position matters more than we see in most cases, unless you really watch the film. This is a tough one to see the value of, but it's also ends up being one of the most important on a down-to-down basis. So this is one that we will be definitely keeping an eye on as season goes along. It was one that we were actually quite strong at last year, and we will see if we can continue to do that going into 2025. So definitely something to keep an eye on, definitely a question mark. Not something that I'm super concerned about, but definitely something that is important to watch, I would say. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, good points there because obviously we've got some good guys coming back, some scar tissue coming back. But I look at that two ways, B, because if the interior guys don't do what they're supposed to do, if they don't do their jobs, then the edges, the talent that we have at
Yep.
edge and the speed and the quickness that we have at
Mhm.
edge, our edges are null and void. So I think
Exactly
that's the
right.
other thing too, when you look at it from a scheme perspective,
Yep.
and go back to what you mentioned about what this defense is trying to do. That's going to speak volumes throughout that line.
No, it's well said. That's a really important point too. If the interior doesn't play the way they need to play, the edges can't do what they need to do. It's a really good point. All right, let's move on to the fun part.
Heyo.
What are we excited about for 2025? That was what we're worried about. Now let's talk what we're excited about. What are our anticipations for 2025? I'm going to get us started off. We started with Lagway in the apprehensions as it relates to injury. Now we're going to start with the anticipations of Lagway in 2025. And we're actually going to do it twice, but we're going to start with what we're going to call Lagway 2.0. If you listened to this episode last year, we talked about Merch 2.0. We're going to talk about Lagway 2.0. So I'm going to focus on a couple different things here and some things that we want to see. And frankly, I think we will see. And that's some improvement in accuracy and timing of short to intermediate throws. Early in the season last year, if you watch the film, he was sometimes off target with some of these, but we did see an improvement as the season moved along with those short to intermediates. But especially with the intermediates, I think there were definitely still some opportunities for him to get better. And I think we're going to see that. I think a lot of this opportunity that he had in the offseason with the injury concerns, whatever they might be, I'm not going to get into that whole dissertation again. I think they gave him the opportunity to work on some very specific things, especially as he was coming back. And I'm going to wager that he really got to do some drills on some of this stuff and really get better here. He made a comment in Media Day. So I believe it was Edgar Thompson that asked him, could he make all the throws? And he said, yes, I can. And I will, basically. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But what he then went on to say was that he's not as worried about making the deep throws, I think because he knows he can, but he's more concerned with making the boring throws. And what a great comment that was, because he really kind of focused on the fact that he needed to get better on those short to intermediate passes to make sure that he filled out his full repertoire when it came to what he could do as a quarterback. And I absolutely loved that. His media day was phenomenal, by the way. If you haven't seen it, go back, watch it, find the YouTube video. That's great stuff. Pressure is a privilege. That's all I have to say. What a quote. Also, obviously, as the next point, really want to see him get better at reading defenses and progressions on the field. We discussed this already in the DJ Lagway pod that we did. His drop 8 readability or readability against drop 8 coverage, I guess I should say, or even just with a spying linebacker in general, raise some concerning question marks when you go look at the film on this. However, he had a lot of time in the offseason, especially in the spring, to do film study. And it was talked about that he was doing a lot of film study for these things. And I'm very excited to see what the results of that are. Again, I'm going to quote him at Media Days. He spoke about not even being fully sure of where his guys were last year, or trying to make sure that he knew where his teammates were and what routes they were supposed to be running and where they were on the field, and not even really having the time to worry about where the defenders were.
Very interesting.
It was very interesting. And I think it was a really honest and open perspective of kind of how a freshman looks at the field. He's trying to just figure out his own playbook, is what I felt like that was.
Right.
Now he's had a whole offseason to go through that, digest that, really get comfortable with that, not have to think about where his guys are. Now he can look at the defense, know where his guys are going to be, and look at the defense and say, okay, you're there. I know I've got my guy over here. That's going to be open. And that's what you want as a quarterback. And that's why I think we really have the opportunity to see with DJ the jump from season 1 to season 2. So we talked about this last year with Mertz as a transfer quarterback, but I think this exists in many ways for any quarterback from season 1 to season 2 in an offense. Whether you're a transfer, whether you're a freshman to a sophomore, whether you're just in year 1 playing versus year 2 playing in the same system. You learn the offense, you understand it better, and you start being able to read defenses because you know your offense. And if he makes the jump that I think he can make, and that I would almost say he should be expected to make, this is going to be fun. Regardless of anything with Billy and his very questionable play calling and his very questionable play design, which hopefully doesn't completely happen the same way that it has in the past. Again, as Randy mentioned, hopefully we see improvement there. But honestly, even if we don't, it's still going to be fun, because DJ has already shown us that even in Billy's basic, vanilla, just borderline garbage pass concepts, he can still make this offense look really good. And to that point, I'm going to turn it over to Randy to talk about how we think Lagway can make an impact on Napier's questionable offensive play calling schemes and what he can do to make that better. Take it away.
Definitely. By the way, great references from Media Day. I think he had one of the most fantastic Media Days a kid could have. Just arguably
it
so.
was absolutely outstanding. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's absolutely great.
And again, no disrespect to Arch Manning, of course, but to hear a kid like that,
honestly, his was good too. His was good. His was good too. It was, but go watch DJ's if you haven't seen it.
But for a kid like that to say pressure is a privilege, good Lord. Okay, mic drop. Or football drop, what are you going to call it? Anyways, Lagway's ability to improve Billy Napier's existing scheme. So you guys, if you listened to the pod before, you've heard me talk about vanilla, eating vanilla ice cream, eating very cheap vanilla ice cream. I'm not even eating Neapolitan as much as I want to taste different flavors. I'm not even eating high-end vanilla with Madagascarian vanilla and extract, whatever the case might be. Can Lagway improve Napier's offense? Yes. First, let's start with long ball scheme. Vertical passing concepts. Let's face it, no disrespect to Graham Mertz, but he was not exactly a deep ball threat. We have in Lagway a true, legit, verified deep ball threat with the accuracy and the arm to make it happen. Under Mertz, sure, we had a lot of yardage, but here's the thing. After receivers got the football, depending on where they were, they had to fight for a lot of yards after catch. Right now, Ben mentioned it, but with the continuity that they're building, and yes, the injury does hinder that. The timing with these receivers catch balls in stride. Because when we looked at what DJ did last year, we talked about some of those plays where Badger or DK were tackled at the 6-yard line, the 5-yard line, the 8-yard line.
So many times. It's
Right?
crazy.
Maybe the ball was slightly underthrown. Maybe there was a hitch. Maybe that whatever the case might be. But if those balls are thrown with fluidity and in motion, touchdown all day long. Okay. So that's going to be a big thing. The other thing, a true RPO attack. Okay. Can he utilize play action more effectively? Can we really see what this RPO can do when it comes to the first world problems we have at running back? And also the speedsters that we have at wide receivers, or when some particular wide receivers line up in the slot. Okay. Here's the thing. If we do these things well enough, which he has the ability to do, Ben, you mentioned it. Yes, he studied a lot of film. He said he's gotten better. He's felt sharper. He knows where his guys are. He has the abilities now to make those passes because he knows where those guys are going to be versus just passing it there and hoping that someone's going to be there. If those things are used more effectively and him executing it, we go back to execution, he absolutely has the ability to take a boring vanilla offense and kick it up a notch or 2 or 10. Okay. Let's look at Napier's offenses. They have performed meagerly so far here in Gainesville. Again, no disrespect. I'm not saying that I'm not attacking Napier. I'm just saying the offensive scheme. Last year's team, a paltry 28.3 points per game. Okay. What was it the year before? 28.4 points per game. Okay. Napier's first year in 22, he averaged 29.5 points a game. Take out the bowl game, and it goes to 31.8. 31.8. Okay. And when you look back at his career at Louisiana, okay, outside of that, you have a 33.6 point per game was one of his higher outputs, and 37.9 points per game, his highest output with the Ragin' Cajuns. Okay. Billy Napier has yet to prove if he can consistently put together a dynamic offense. Okay. You look at our 4-game stretch run a year ago. Okay. We didn't crack 30 points on Ole Miss or LSU. Okay. We put 31 on a 2-10 FSU. We managed 33 against Tulane. Again, I'm not saying we're not complaining about the wins, right? But again, the intensity of the offense, all the things that go into a high-powered offense with the things that we have, those are one of the elements that I believe DJ Lagway, again, being healthy, knowing, again, as B mentioned, 2.0, knowing the plays, knowing the positioning on the field, knowing where his guys are going to be, he has the ability to improve Napier's existing scheme and make it look so much better.
Yep. So 2 comments on that. First of all, you mentioned those games down the stretch where he was not 100% healthy. When he was 100% healthy against Kentucky, one of the better defenses in the SEC, they may not have been a good offense, but they were a very good defense. We profiled that before the game.
Yes.
We dropped 45 on their head. 45. Very good defense. We dropped 45 points on them. They were one of the top defenses in the SEC coming into that game. We dropped 45 on them. Technically 38 on offense because of the Cormani McLean pick 6.
Sure.
But
yeah, I got you.
Still, 38 offensive on one of the better defenses in the SEC. Say we won about Kentucky last year. Not a great team, agreed, but their defense was solid. And we dropped 38 offensively on their head when Lagway was healthy. That says what it needs to say about what he can do when he's healthy. Second point I'll make is this. Despite Billy's shortcomings in offensive scheme, play calling, design, all the things we talk about all the time, one of the things this offense is built on, as Randy mentioned, is vertical passing concepts. It's run the ball, play action, and throw the ball vertically. Those are the base elements of this offense. When you have a quarterback who's really good at throwing the ball vertically, and you have good receivers, fast receivers, big receivers who can go get that ball vertically, which we do, it is very easy to see the potential for this to work, despite all the vanilla that we see out there. So even though we have lots of issues, we have lots of things we'd like to see done differently, done better, everything else, there is absolutely an anticipation here to see Lagway take this offense to the next level, if you will, that is possible under Napier, despite all the things that we take issue with, that we have problems with, and make it better. And we've already seen evidence of this, but I think it can be even more than what we've seen previously, especially with a good offensive line, quite frankly, which we're going to have. Some exciting stuff, quite frankly. There's really no way around it. So,
right.
Moving along.
Yep.
Next anticipation. Run the ball in 2025. Let's do this. Jaden Ball, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about this last pod. Or actually, excuse me, the pod before that. Actually, no, I think it was last pod. Whatever. Ball's numbers last year, 5.1 yards per carry, 2.6 after contact, with a broken tackle rate of 31.5%.
Let's go.
Third best in the SEC. And I think it's going to go up because, to quote Tyler Miles, Jaden Maw had an incredible summer.
Yes.
He broke the team records, not the running back records, not the personal records, the team records, not only for position, but for pound, the strongest. We have a formula, and he's pound for pound, he's the strongest guy on the team. Not only the team, but since we've started tracking that, pound for pound, the strongest guy we've ever had. End quote. Let that sink in for a minute. The strongest guy they've ever had, pound for pound, on the team. And he already had a 31.5% broken tackle rate. Betting that's going to go up. And you see a guy out there who week in, week out looks like Shady McCoy, juking, making guys fall out of their shoes and not even having to break tackles. And he weighs 230 some odd pounds at almost 6 foot, if not 6 foot. Are you kidding me? This dude is an absolute freak. I cannot wait to see him be the starting running back for the season. I know Jacoby's going to spell him, and I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. I think it's good to have a two-headed monster. But when you capitalize on top of that and compound, on top of that, that the O-line should absolutely be improved year over year, no question, frankly, he's going to have even more opportunity to be an absolutely huge impact player for the Gators this season. I can't wait to see it. Complement that with the threat of the deep ball with Lagway. How many 6, maybe even 7-man boxes? Certainly a lack of 8-man boxes. I would certainly think a lot of 6-man boxes in a lot of cases that we're going to be seeing. I mean, this is going to be, there could be some cheat mode stuff going on here. Jaden's going to go nuts. Jaden's going to go absolutely nuts. He's going to have a field day. He is going to rip it up. And one other point that I would like to make, Billy Gonzalez values blocking at his wide receiver position, maybe above anything else. So if we're running the ball, his wide receivers will block or they will not be on the field. Let me assure you, that is a paramount thing for him. So if we get 6-man boxes, those safeties, well, maybe not the safeties, but the corners, they ain't getting in to make tackles because those wide receivers are blocking them like to the ground, like pancake blocking them like O-linemen. We don't play with a wide receiver blocking at Florida under Billy Gonzalez. So watch out for number 13 because he's going to tear it up. I can't wait to see it. I'm excited.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is Jaden Ball, great kid, great character, 6'1", 231, 19 years old, 555-pound squat record, in addition to a 4.45 40. That's all.
It doesn't even make sense. It's not logical.
No, it is a cheat code, B. It is. All right, ready to move on? Next point?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, O-line. The improvement of the O-line play. We are returning for starters. And here's the thing. This squad here, anchored by the All-American Jake Slaughter, got better as that season progressed last year to rally around DJ, to keep him safe. Again, when he was at 65, 70, 75%, whatever the number. Gators are returning 4 starters from the 2024 season. For what we've seen on paper, should be one of the top units, if not the top unit in the SEC. Okay. When you look at Jake Slaughter leading the charge, he's been the anchor for the past few years, especially when Kingsley Ugokin went down years ago. Jake Slaughter was splitting some time with him 3 years ago. The Gators, this Gator offensive line has nearly 6,000 returning career snaps from the projected starting offensive line alone. Okay. And then the other thing is, backing up that, you've got Kearney, you've got Westfall, Zamandela, Jones, and that's the other thing too. We've got a little bit of development there when it comes to the depth piece, because all those players last year saw some time on the field. So this offensive line, when you look at the way that they came together last year, how they played first part of the year to second part of the year, if they're going to rally the same way, they have plenty of scar tissue, they know what they're doing, they know their assignments, they know their gaps, this is going to be an amazing area, a position group to watch, because we said it before, we'll say it again. SEC football won and lost in the trenches, and we believe this O-line, I believe this O-line, to make a huge impact, to open up the run game, do what we need to do to impose our will, and not to mention keep DJ's jersey as clean as possible. Very, very excited to watch this O-line perform this fall, B.
Yeah, without question. I don't think there's any doubt that this is going to be one of the absolute strengths of the team, much less just the offense. It's really exciting to see what this unit is going to be capable of. We're flirting with the word elite here. I think it's definitely possible that it works its way into the vocabulary as the season goes along. And I'm excited to see it. So we'll see what happens, but the potential is definitely there. So we'll see how it goes. But it's definitely a position of excitement. I don't see how you're not jazzed about this line, knowing what we know about it, knowing about the returning starters, as you mentioned, and knowing about the potential of Bryce Levitt coming up as the 5th member,
yes,
who again played in this unit last year. So there's no issue with cohesion or gel or anything else. I mean, it's going to be a solid unit. There's no question. So moving along, next, anticipation, linebacker play. I'm excited about this one. I really am. This is something that's flying a bit under the radar, in my opinion. We've heard some talk. If you've kept up with offseason articles and looked at this stuff, there's been some mention of Miles Graham. But aside from that, not a whole lot's been talked about. I'm going to drop some stats from last season, some returning production stuff, and then talk about what I think we're looking at for next season. So, returning production from last year. We'll start with Pup Howard. 37 tackles, 17 of them solo, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 sack, and 1 pass defended in 8 games played. Let that sink in, because he only played 8 of the 13 games we had last season, because he got injured against Georgia. So, pretty impressive stuff considering the amount of games he actually played. Next on the list, Jaden Robinson, 52 tackles, 28 solo, three and a half sacks, and one of the lowest missed tackle rates on the entire team. Exceptional tackler here, though Pup was as well, for the record, but Jaden was very, very good on this. Next up is, and he played every game, Miles Graham, 30 tackles, 9 solo, 1 forced fumble, 1 sack, 1 INT in 11 games played, but not in a starting role, so that's important to keep in mind. And then Aaron Childs, 23 tackles, 10 solo, 1 sack, 1 pass defended. Again, 11 games, but again, not in his starting role. So again, something to keep in mind with those stats. Not that any of those are really unimpressive, but again, some perspective for those two freshmen in Graham and Childs. Again, they are freshmen with those numbers. Additionally, we add this year Ty Jackson as one of the, as the top-rated inside linebacker in the 2025 recruiting class. And this unit is primed, absolutely primed to be one of the best in the SEC, if not the country, quite frankly. And it's not getting talked about that way. We are not getting the hype. We are not getting the love as being one of the best linebacking cores, but they are, period. I'm going to say it right now. It's not up for discussion. It's not up for conversation. It's fact. This is one of the best linebacking cores in the country. There are a handful that can even compete with this unit. They are flying under the radar in more ways than one. I am looking forward to seeing significant impact from this group. They are going to make a difference. I talked about earlier, the defensive scheme and being more solid down to down, right? Making more of an impact on kind of your standard down and distance stuff. This is the group that makes that happen. We know the D-line is going to be solid, but the D-line was solid last year. And we still saw some question marks when it came to some of that standard down and distance yardage gained, right? The bend don't break stuff that we talked about. This is where the rubber's going to meet the road on that stat. This is where the difference gets made. This linebacking group is going to be next level. I am supremely confident in it. I don't have question marks. I don't think I borderline. Well, I guess technically I do, because you can never say you know until you've seen it, but I pretty much know this linebacking group is going to be nasty. Absolutely nasty. This is going to be the difference in how we bend less as a defense. What do you got?
Let's go trucking.
Yes, sir.
That's all. I mean, listening to what you just read off and seeing the youth, but also seeing the scar tissue come with that, and the experience last year and what they did last year from a productivity standpoint, man, looking for them to impose their will right this season. So, absolute bit of excitement. Good points there, B. Good points.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. As we're trying to wrap this thing up, we're going a little bit long, people, but that's all right. That's all right. Roster talent. Okay. We've said it before, arguably the most talented roster on paper that the University of Florida has had to work with in a while. I'm going to break that down into the sense of Napier's philosophy of building through recruiting instead of constantly having to reload year in, year out. Now, we have gotten some integral pieces in the portal over the years. We need to utilize the portal where we can, i.e. Chimdike, i.e. Elijah Badger, i.e. Graham Mertz. Okay, the list goes on. Okay, and one of those impacts that, well, originally slated to us, then left us, and come back, boulders for shoulders, Cormani McLean. Okay, he's going to be a big standout coming into this fall, right? And have a huge impact on the field. But more specifically, Napier's philosophy is building up this program through recruiting and seeing the fruits of that labor pay off, right? This mimics a lot of your Bama, your UGA, right? This culture building process speaks a lot to what we're seeing now in this roster, because this is organic, Okay, let's face it. Napier is coming from Saban, the Dark Sith Lord, coming from Dabo over there in Clemson. Okay, he's had some of the two best examples of how to recruit, how to build a program, boots on the ground, grassroots. And all those times, and as methodical as Napier. And here's the thing, right? We talk about it, right? With his process, with all of his different systems that he has, his adaptability seems to be questioned. But guess what? With all those things he has, you know that he's taken notes away from those two influences to do what he's done here. And B, you mentioned it a few pods ago, what Strickland said about him in the front office, in that front office capacity to build a program in this day of age. Scott Strickland wouldn't want anybody else building it. Correct?
Yep. Correct.
Right. So you look at that, right? Look at what happened to Ole Miss, leveraging, mortgaging the farm to spend what they spend to go 10-3, miss the CFP, 5-3 in the SEC, and ultimately go bust. Okay. FSU spending over $14 million or whatever it was to put that 2-10 on the field, 1-7 in the ACC. Okay. Could that be LSU this year? Who knows? But at the end of the day, we're not having to constantly spend a crap ton of money to go back in and reload and try and enter these pieces into the cog, into the culture to try and make it work. It's organic. It's homegrown, swamp grown. Okay. And this is the
swamp grown. I like it.
Right. This is the unique advantage I think that Napier can have, which is going to lead to, again, B, great points regarding the schedule, the degree, call it the DOD, right? Degree of difficulty, and the impact that has on the record and the impact that has on Billy Napes. Those things matter. But if you're building a program like this internally, because again, I think we could argue till the cows come home, everything we've seen Billy do from a field perspective, from a staff perspective, personnel perspective, everything else, we pretty much check the box on. The main question mark is the offense. Outside of that, I think we're more than likely pleased with the overall job that Billy's done. But I'm telling you, this roster talent and this philosophy of building through recruiting, that's probably going to be his calling card, especially if this program can sustain this growth and sustain this talent for the next 4 or 5 seasons, a decade, whatever the number.
Yeah, I think this season's the determining factor on that.
Yes.
I think this will determine whether or not that sticks or doesn't. And not just about Billy. Like, I'm assuming that Billy stays through this season. I think that probably happens, barring something that I don't foresee coming. Whether I agree with that or not, which, as most of you know, I probably don't. However, I think the long and the short of it is, I think this season is what proves out whether or not that ends up being a good or bad decision in the long term for the health of the program in terms of what Randy is referring to. I think there are a lot of things that Billy is good at, despite my feelings on him as being the right person for the job. My qualms purely revolve around the offense and his inability to give up play calling, design, scheme, all those things that I think are a huge weakness and a missed opportunity, really. That's the biggest thing, is a missed opportunity. Again, I won't delve any deeper. We've spent plenty of time on it. But the long story short is, I think this will be the year that kind of bears that out to say, okay, is this working? Are we seeing progression? Are we seeing improvement? Are we seeing something that shows that we're making progress? Does that mean the CFP? I don't know. Because again, this schedule is really hard. It's going to be tough to do. For anybody. Regardless of what I think about Napier, it'd be hard for anyone. But having said that, I really do think that there are some elements here that do make sense and that are building in the right direction for sure. Again, the roster talent on paper here, best it's been in a long, long time. And you got to give credit where credit's due for that, because when Billy came here, that was not the case. My goodness, that was not the case. Far, far from it. And we have built back to an area where that really is the case, and we have the potential to build it to where it's Urban Meyer level. It's not there yet, but it's knocking on the door. And if we have a good season this year, I bet you we see it. I bet you we get to those kind of levels of roster talent. And we know what that can look like. Now, what we do with that roster talent is another conversation. However, getting the talent there is what really matters. So we'll see how that goes. My last anticipation for 2025 is this wide receiver room. This is a room that I feel like is not getting enough credit outside of Gator Nation, if you will. The national media is borderline disrespecting our wide receiver room. I've seen us on lists at 18 on Phil Steele, I believe. Not in the top 10 for ESPN. Obviously not in the top 10 for Phil Steele. A couple others where we were left off. I think the biggest reason for this is we lost so much returning production. And I understand the thought process behind that, but my problem is that a lot of other teams don't necessarily have returning production either. They have transfers. And we don't, other than Jermichael Sturdivant, obviously. We have a lot of guys, whether they be freshmen or returning players from injury, i.e. Trey Wilson, or Aiden Mizell, who haven't made a huge splash but have shown flashes. Where this room, as Randy kind of alluded to earlier, is absolutely loaded with speed. It's honestly pretty loaded with talent. And I don't understand why returning production is the kind of only factor that seems to be being looked at here. If we had Elijah Badger and Chimdike back, I feel like we'd be a lock for every top 10 list in the country. I don't think it'd even be a question. But because we don't, we're not in any top 10 list in the country, that doesn't even make sense. When you look at the talent in this room, I don't think there's any question in my mind that we are as good, if not possibly better, than we were last year. From top to bottom, I think we are unquestionably better, honestly, than we were last year. And I'm going to go through and take a minute to break that down. So your likely starters here are Trey Wilson, Jermichael Sturdivant. I think those two are locks for starters. And it's either going to be Aiden Mizell or Dallas Wilson at your third wide receiver spot for a starter. This is an extremely strong combination of size, quickness, and most of all, speed in this group. You also have returning players in Tank Hawkins, TJ Abrams, and Khalil Jackson, already discussed, though there is some question about K-Jack in terms of depending where he's at with injury, because he had another surgery in the offseason, which I hated to hear. But those other two guys for sure are likely to see the field. I don't know if K-Jack will or not, depending on that injury. Tank and TJ are two of the fastest guys on the team. So again, speed. I'm going to keep saying that. But we still need to see improvement from those guys in route running. Now, I just saw something today or yesterday on Tank saying that he's really had a solid offseason in terms of overall understanding of the position, route running, really making some improvements there, kind of translating his game from the track and field arena to the football field. What you talked about earlier, there's a difference there from track speed to football speed. Again, unless you're Jeff Demps. For those that don't know, go back and watch the 2008 team and watch Jeff Demps just go nuts. But ultimately, I do think that's a valid point, and I think we're getting there with one Tank Hawkins. Other freshmen of note are Nashawn Montgomery, Vernal Brown III, and Muiz Tonkara. Again, ton of speed. I'm going to keep saying it here. The speed on this position is off the charts. These guys are all fast, and we have some good size with Montgomery and Tonkara here. And for Brown, the escapability. Go watch Brown's high school film. He is nasty. A lot of human joystick, Kadarius Toney stuff going on here. Super quick, super escapability stuff going on. Next level with him. And he's not slow either by any stretch of the imagination. So overall, really, really cool stuff to see at this position. This is a dynamic receiver room with a lower amount of returning production than a lot of the rest of the team, granted, but the talent on paper is better than last season. It's better. So, yes, lower returning production, but better talent. So, why is the excitement level not through the roof? I don't know. I don't really understand it. Again, I think in Gator Nation, in the Gator media, it is high. But outside of that, it's kind of like, well, man, I'm not sure what Florida's going to do at receiver. Well, let me tell you, I am. We're going to be good at receiver, probably very good at receiver. I'm very interested to see if we leverage more of our options here with Callaway and Spurrier Jr., excuse me, as Randy already alluded to. Can we potentially have some more influence there? Can we potentially run some more stuff, even if it's not 10 personnel, though I'd like it to be? But even if we don't get that, can we do it with RPO? Can we do it with some spacing? Can we do it with some route concepts? Can we do something to leverage more of these guys, get them more in the lineup, get more touches, get more shots at the ball with all of this speed, all of this talent that's on the roster? Fingers crossed. That's all I got.
I think it was well said, B, because when you look at Montgomery, Wilson, Brown the third, Sturdivant, Hawkins, Mizell, and then you get into Tonkara, K-Jack, DeBron Hampton. Okay, people like DeBron who? Yeah. Willis, Texas teammate of DJ Lagway. Yep. Okay, just awarded a scholarship. Congratulations. First world problems at that position. I'll just say that.
Absolutely.
I'll finish it there.
Without question. Same as the running back room, honestly. Even though it's not the same returning production, it's the same problem.
It is. All right, B. And outside of that, to finish up the last of our anticipations, I'm going to sign off for the recruiting impact of a strong season. Okay, so let's dive into this. It is provocative. It does get Gator Nation going, and it will get future Gators going. When you win in the swamp, it's infectious. Okay, you made a reference of it, but look at what Urban Meyer did with those recruiting classes from 05 to 10.
Yep.
Okay, the culture. Okay, when you look at that winning culture, that's one thing Urban brought. Whether you agree with his tactics or not, military mindset, hot dogs versus steak, whatever, that's fine. But
it was a winning culture. I don't know if it was an overall great culture, but it was a winning culture for sure.
Right? Exactly. So what do we have today that wasn't around back then? Okay, a different type of culture that Billy has instilled. The education aspect that comes with it, okay? These kids have a designated tutor for each of them. Gatormade, once a quarter or once a month, whatever they're doing, they're taking business trips. They're going to see real estate. They're going to talk to Fortune 500 CEOs about opportunities, okay? Making them well-rounded. The exposure, playing the SEC on the biggest networks in front of the biggest crowds. The opportunities that this presents. There's nothing like playing football in front of a packed swamp in the fall. Let's face it. Nothing. Florida was behind on technologies. They were behind on facilities. Well, guess what? Strickland, I know he gets a lot of criticism, but guess what? He's answered the call to get these facilities, probably not, yet to where some other schools are, some LSUs, Alabamas, so on and so forth. But they're coming, especially when you look at the Heavener Football Complex, what that has done. Okay? And the new student facilities, amazing. So you look in terms of facilities, amenities, okay? All these different things combined, and now you produce a winning culture. Not just the internal culture of the program, but a winning culture coupled with the education, coupled with the exposure, coupled with the opportunities, and holy smokes. Just as bad as University of Florida is at turning away good talent because of all the people that apply as a great public university, we're probably going to have a very similar issue when you look at what it can do for recruiting and how many kids say, you know what? Yeah, the NIL is one part of it. The money side is one part of it. But hey, I want to go there because they're winning. They're having a good time doing it. They're doing it the right way. Everything is above board. And not to mention, I'm going to be exposed. I'm going to be highlighted. I'm going to have those opportunities playing in the swamp, playing for Orange and Blue. I think the potential recruiting impact of a strong season is greater than we can even fathom right now. But I agree with you, B. I agree. This is a pivotal year for Napier. Pivotal year.
Yeah, it is. Because I think, again, assuming that he stays, which we don't know, but assuming that things go more or less to plan, again, against the difficult schedule, I think this can show the potential of what he's trying to build here. At least in theory. And we'll see if that happens. We don't know. A lot of question marks still. A lot of things that we'd like to see improve, and hopefully we will see at least some of them improve. We'll get more into that in next week's pod, or excuse me, 2 weeks from now's pod with the season preview. But I think overall, it's a critical year for him, as last year was in a number of ways. But last year got a little weird with Mertz's injury and everything else. You know, it kind of didn't go on script, and then started bad, finished strong. So we'll see how this year goes and what happens. Obviously, the hopes are kind of higher. So if they don't finish better, I think there's going to be problems for him. But I do think that the potential, at least, is there for him to start the kind of wheel turning of this thing going. And I saw that 2 years ago. And I think it got a little lost last year. Maybe it gets back on track this year, and maybe it doesn't. We'll see. Time will tell. So with that, we're going to wrap this thing up. Took a little longer than I think we intended, but not too much longer. So really good stuff to discuss and get into and talk about. I think it's a very exciting thing. We're getting close. As you mentioned, we're less than 4 weeks away. So let's go. And 2 weeks from now, we'll get into our first episode of season 3 and get into our season preview pod, which officially starts off the season. Break down everything that we look forward to in 2025, do our full game picks for 2025. I know we kind of picked our percentages in our last pod to go through what our chances were, but we'll actually give you whether or not we think we'll win or lose the game as we get into it and look at it from there. And it may or may not reflect those percentages because those are based on kind of just like in a vacuum numbers, which we didn't really say during that pod, I realized, but that's kind of the idea of that. So overall, thanks for staying with us and listening through and looking at what we're worried about and what we're looking forward to for 2025. And with that, I'll turn it over to you to close us out there, Randy.
Definitely, B. Enjoyed this one. Yeah, a little bit longer than we anticipated, but that's okay. Apprehensions versus anticipations. I think there's a lot, as we proved in this pod, to anticipate. Wrapping up this pod, episode 60, like B mentioned, episode 61, which will be season 3, episode 1 in 2 weeks with the season preview. Wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.